Welcome back to The Work of the Rails, a soothing train narrative and sleep story for adults, continuing where Part 1 left off. Tonight, the story follows the rails beyond the workshops and signal lights, into the open world they connect, across rivers, through forests, and into the changing age of steel and current. We'll meet the dispatchers who choreograph distance, the inspectors who walk the lines, and the quiet progress that reshapes the rails for a new era. How does a system built on iron learn to adapt and endure? And what remains when the rhythm of work gives way to rest? This is The Work of the Rails, Part 2, The Line and the Light. Good evening, traveller, and welcome to Realm and Reason. If you'd like to drift through more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe before you fall asleep. Now, take a deep breath in and let it go. Before we begin, let's put your body to rest. Start by resting your attention at the top of your head. Notice the sensations, not just the image of the body, but the feeling of it. Slowly move down through your body, spending about 5 seconds on each part. With every exhale, let that area soften. Imagine your breath traveling through each place you focus on, releasing tension as it flows. Keep moving downward through your eyebrows, your cheeks, your neck and shoulders, your hands and fingers, down through your legs to the very tips of your toes. And now, release the whole body, let yourself drift and rest. Dispatchers and the dance of distance, far from the rails themselves, away from the sound of wheels, air and engines. There is another kind of movement at work. It happens in rooms that rarely see daylight, where walls glow with screens and quiet voices shape the flow of the railroad. This is the realm of the dispatchers, the unseen conductors of distance. The control room. The dispatch center is never loud. Its energy feels more like a library than a control tower. A soft hum fills the air. Ventilation, computer fans, the low static of radios always open on one ear. Rows of monitors line the walls, each showing a map of track. White lines for main routes, branching spurs in blue, tiny rectangles marking moving trains. Every few seconds, one of those rectangles shifts slightly forward. The entire network seems alive, breathing in pixels. Depending on traffic and terrain, a dispatcher may oversee a territory, often called a subdivision, that spans hundreds of miles. On a freight system, one person might coordinate everything from a port city to a mountain range. Each train under their care has its own personality. Fast intermodal freights carrying containers, slow bulk trains heavy with coal or grain, local runs serving small towns. The dispatcher knows them all by symbol, weight and schedule. They work under Centralized Traffic Control, or CTC, the system that links every signal, switch and block circuit back to their screens. Modern dispatch centers use computerized control panels, fiber optic links and radio to set remote signals and switches hundreds of miles away. When a dispatcher clicks on a section of track, a set of commands travels instantly through those lines, aligning switches and changing signal aspects far from view. To an engineer in the field, it appears as a single green light on a mast. To the dispatcher, it's part of a mosaic, a moving puzzle of timing, mass, and geography. The choreography of motion, Every train occupies a block, a section of track defined for signalling and control, and only one can hold that space at a time. The dispatcher's job is to choreograph those movements so that the blocks clear and refill, like the rhythm of breathing. On busy lines, trains move in both directions, meeting and passing at sidings, short parallel tracks that allow one to wait while the other goes by. This is the everyday ballet of railroading. The meet, planned hours in advance but adjusted minute by minute as conditions change. A dispatcher might line up two trains approaching each other on single track. The heavier freight, slower to restart, gets priority, while the lighter train takes the siding. As the signals clear, the dispatcher watches the light shift from red to yellow to green, knowing that miles away two crews will see them in sequence. When the head end passes the midpoint, the dispatcher gives the waiting crew permission to rejoin the main line. A wave of green lights ripples down the screen, a visual echo of motion returning to balance. Trains are heavy but also fragile in timing. A delay at one siding can cascade through an entire region, rippling hours down the timetable. Dispatchers learn to think not just in moments but in waves, predicting how every decision will affect the trains behind. They visualize time as distance and distance as time, the same conversion that every engineer feels in motion. Safety and separation. Safety is the foundation of every decision. Between any two trains there must always be a margin, measured not in feet, but in blocks and signals. The dispatcher enforces that margin constantly. If a train stops unexpectedly, its track circuit instantly marks the block as occupied, turning the signals behind it red. If communication drops, rules require that other trains slow or hold position until contact is re-established. Every system is built around redundancy. Every person understands that safety lives in caution, not speed. In many US mainline freight corridors, positive train control, PTC, is now required by law. PTC supplements a dispatcher's authority by using GPS and wireless data to continuously track train positions and enforce speed restrictions. If a crew exceeds its limit or fails to stop for a signal, the system intervenes automatically, reducing power or applying the brakes. It enhances safety but does not replace human judgment. Dispatchers remain the center of decision-making, balancing data with experience. The rhythm of decision. There are moments when everything moves smoothly, and others when the system tenses. A mechanical failure, a stalled truck at a crossing, a storm washing debris onto the line. Each creates a disturbance that ripples through the network. When it happens, the dispatcher's calm voice cuts through static. Train 487, reduced to restricted speed. Maintenance on the main at milepost 312. Over. The engineer responds with the same composed cadence and the train slows. Minutes later, when the track clears, the dispatcher releases the block and the rhythm resumes. The best dispatchers describe their work as a kind of quiet pressure, steady but never frantic. Each choice must be precise because every click of a mouse or keystroke affects lives, schedules, and equipment worth millions. There's no room for haste, but no space for hesitation either. It's a skill honed by experience, where instinct merges with data and habit becomes intuition. The human element. Many dispatchers began their careers on the ground, running switches, coupling cars, learning how the steel feels under their boots. Some railroads prefer dispatchers with prior field or operations experience, believing that familiarity with the physical railroad helps them visualize what's happening beyond the screens. When they move into the control center, that memory remains. They can imagine the sound of a switch motor engaging, the delay between an order and the signal's change, the time it takes a heavy freight to clear a junction. Technology might display it as a diagram, but they still picture it as motion and weight. Their workspace is designed for focus. Lighting stays low to reduce glare on screens, clocks line the wall, synchronized to railroad time. Each station has multiple monitors, one for territory, one for communication logs, one for weather and maintenance bulletins. Coffee cups rest near keyboards. Headsets hang beside laminated rulebooks dog-eared with years of use. When a shift begins, the room is handed over like a ship's bridge, one dispatcher briefed by another before taking command of the territory. The exchange is formal, calm, almost ritualistic. All trains clear to milepost 420, Form B active near the East End, work crew clear at 14:30. Copy that, I've got it. The quiet art of control. From the outside, the job might seem static, people sitting before screens. But inside those displays lies motion measured in hundreds of miles and millions of tons. The dispatcher orchestrates all of it, unseen yet essential. Their satisfaction comes not from excitement, but from the opposite, from the stillness that means everything is moving as it should. There's a serenity in that precision. Each route lined up, each train accounted for, each voice confirmed. It's a balance between control and surrender. Control over signals and switches, surrender to physics and weather. They can plan everything, but they cannot make the trains move faster than safety allows. Occasionally, as the night shift deepens, the room falls silent except for the tick of cooling electronics. The dispatchers watch their maps, eyes following the slow migration of lights. A freight clears one block, enters another, disappears into the green chain ahead. Somewhere far away, its crew glances at the same signal, sees the same colour, and knows they are seen in return. That mutual awareness, one in the cab, one in the chair, is the invisible bond that holds the railroad together. The dance of distance. To move a train across a continent requires more than engines and steel. It requires choreography, a synchronized movement of people, systems, and time. Every meet, every pause, every clearance is a step in that dance. Dispatchers feel it not in motion but in rhythm. The slow repetition of green lights, the regular cadence of radio voices, the balance between anticipation and patience. When dawn arrives, the light outside the control room windows turns the monitors pale blue. Another shift ends, another begins. The same trains continue, guided by the new hands but the same discipline. There are no applause, no announcements, only the steady pulse of work done correctly. Somewhere out on the rails, an engineer looks up at a green signal and eases the throttle forward, unaware of the quiet calculation that cleared the way. In that moment, the dance of distance continues, silent, steady, and precise, proving that calm minds and clear decisions are what keep the rails alive. Track and time. At first glance, a railroad's strength seems to lie in its locomotives, machines of immense power and weight. But in truth, all of that power rests upon two narrow ribbons of steel, held in place by wood, stone, and precision. Every wheel turn depends on the hidden work of those who keep the line in a perfect shape, the track inspectors and maintenance gangs who walk the rails before dawn. The morning patrol, before the first train of the day, inspectors move out in small, specially equipped trucks called high rail vehicles. Steel guide wheels drop onto the track, letting the truck roll safely along the line. They listen more than they look. Each joint, each weld, each stretch of rail tells a story in sound. The faint click of a loose spike, the hollow thump of a tie gone soft with age, the bright ring of healthy steel. Cold air carries the scent of creosote, the preservative that soaks into wooden ties to guard them from rot. It mixes with the sharper smell of oil and frost. In that quiet hour, their work feels almost like tending a living thing, checking its pulse, noting its temperature, hearing how it breathes. Each tie, whether wood or concrete, anchors the rails and keeps them spaced exactly 56.5 inches apart, the standard gauge used on most of the world's main lines. That distance never changes. Everything else must flex around it. The track's flexibility comes from the ballast, a bed of crushed stone that supports and cushions every tie. When a train passes, the ballast shifts slightly, absorbing vibration, then settles again. Too loose and the track drifts out of alignment. Too tight and it cannot drain or expand. Maintenance crews watch this balance as carefully as doctors watch vital signs. The geometry of steel. To the casual eye, rails appear straight, but every mile is a geometric design. Surveyors record 3 main dimensions: alignment, the side-to-side curve; cross level, the tilt from one rail to the other; and surface, the rise and fall along the length. Together, these define track geometry, the invisible architecture that makes a smooth ride possible. Even a deviation of a few millimeters can create oscillation, the rhythmic sway passengers sometimes feel on old lines. Left uncorrected, those oscillations can grow, shaking bolts loose and tiring the metal. So inspectors measure, adjust, and record constantly. To help them, railroads use geometry cars, special trains fitted with lasers, gyroscopes, and accelerometers. They move slowly over the track, recording thousands of readings per second. When data shows a dip or twist beyond tolerance, crews receive coordinates for repair. By the time the next freight rolls through, the surface will be true again, as if nothing had ever shifted. Expansion and the breath of metal steel expands in heat and contracts in cold. A mile of rail can grow or shrink by more than an inch between summer and winter. To manage that movement, track engineers design expansion gaps at joints and bridges, small openings that let the rail stretch without buckling. Modern main lines often use continuous welded rail, where sections hundreds of feet long are joined by the thermite welding into a seamless ribbon. Here, the steel is fastened firmly to the ties and placed under neutral temperature stress. It's stretched slightly when cool, so it remains stable through most of the year. The science is precise, the art is experience. Too little tension and the rail creeps. Too much, and it may kink when summer heat swells it. The track crews understand these subtleties not as numbers but as feel. The way a rail hums when struck, the way it moves under a spanner. The work of renewal, when repairs are needed, the maintenance of way gang arrives in procession, their machines bright yellow against the grey steel. First come the spike pullers, removing the old fasteners that hold rails to ties. Next, tie handlers lift out the weathered beams, piling them neatly by the right-of-way. New ties slide into place, their creosote sheen catching the morning light. Then the rail lifter and tamping machine follow, one raising the track slightly, while the other vibrates ballast beneath each tie, locking it firm again. From a distance, the whole operation looks like a slow-moving factory, each machine knowing its step in the dance. The clang of metal carries across the fields, ballast crunches under boots. Workers move in rhythm, measured, unhurried, exact. Every bolt tightened, every plate aligned. The foreman checks levels with a small sighting tool, then gives a nod. A mile behind them, the line they've renewed gleams in perfect symmetry. Thermite and fire. Sometimes a section of rail must be replaced entirely. For that, the welders bring fire to the steel. They clamp a mould around the gap, pour in a mix of powdered aluminum and iron oxide, and ignite it with a flare. The thermite reaction roars to life, reaching more than 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Molten steel flows into the joint, fusing both ends into one continuous rail. As it cools, a pale vapour drifts upward, carrying the scent of burnt sand and hot metal. When the glow fades, the welder grinds the surface smooth until the wheels will never know the seam was there. It is one of the few moments in railroading where heat, light, and chemistry meet artistry. The rhythm of maintenance. All day long, maintenance crews move up and down the line, guided by dispatchers who grant them track warrants, official permission to occupy a stretch of main track. Their trucks pull onto sidings when trains approach, then return to work once the line is clear. Each delay is brief, each action deliberate. To outsiders, it may seem monotonous. To those who work it is meditation through motion, swing, measure, tighten, repeat. By late afternoon, the temperature rises, rails expanding almost imperceptibly. The smell of sun-warmed creosote mingles with dust and diesel. Far ahead, a freight horn echoes across the hills, a reminder that the system never truly stops. The track must be ready for whatever weight the night will bring. Rails as lines of trust. Standing on the right-of-way, the rail stretches away until it vanishes in haze. It seems simple, two lines of steel resting on wood and stone. But within that simplicity lies faith. Faith in the metal, the workmanship, and the countless eyes that inspect it. Each weld is a promise. Each bolt is a handshake between generations. Steel carries more than freight. It carries confidence, memory, and the invisible weight of those who built it. Railroads call their infrastructure permanent way, but even permanence needs care. The steel weathers, the ballast settles, and time presses down. Yet through maintenance and attention, the line renews itself mile after mile. The people who tend it rarely appear in photographs or news, but their work is what allows every journey to happen. Their craft is measured not by motion, but by stillness. The quiet assurance that when a train passes, everything beneath it will hold. As evening falls, the gang finishes its section. They collect tools, mark notes on a clipboard, and watch the sunset burn along the rails. The track glows briefly, then cools into shadow. Soon another train will roll across their work unseen, trusting every inch of what they've made. And in that moment, the line will become what it always was meant to be. Not just steel on stone, but a continuous thread of human effort stretched across both space and time. The changing era. Every generation of railroader inherits a different kind of machine. But the work remains the same, to move weight with care. The rails themselves change little, yet the power riding upon them has transformed the world. From the hiss of steam to the quiet hum of electric traction, the railroad's heart has evolved, but it has never stopped beating. From fire to fuel, the first era was fire. Steam locomotives breathed like living things, their boilers glowing red inside, their smoke drifting like weather. Coal and water made motion. Heat became pressure, and pressure became strength. The engineer felt the pulse of the pistons through the floorboards, while the fireman shoveled coal in rhythm, each scoop feeding the heartbeat of the train. Those engines demanded constant attention, oil for bearings, water for the boiler, vigilance for every gauge. They were labour-intensive, imperfect and magnificent. By the mid-20th century, steam yielded to diesel-electric power, engines that could start with a key instead of a match. Fuel replaced firewood, and the work shifted from tending flame to managing systems. The diesel era simplified the job but deepened its precision. Now energy flowed through wires and generators, not rods and valves. Maintenance grew cleaner, schedules longer, and the crews traded smoke for the steady thrum of 16 cylinders under a steel hood. The new locomotives could run farther with fewer stops, linking coasts and countries in continuous motion. Electric and beyond. In dense corridors, Europe, Japan, parts of the US Northeast, came the next step: electric traction. No fuel tanks, no exhaust, only pantographs touching overhead wires that carried power from distant grids. Electric locomotives used large traction motors powered directly by current, drawing energy from substations spaced along the line. They accelerate faster, climb grades more efficiently, and produce almost no local emissions. For heavy freight or high-speed passenger service, electricity became the quiet force of modern rail. Even where full electrification proved too costly, hybrid systems began to appear, dual-mode locomotives able to run under wire or on diesel, adapting to territory as easily as a bird to wind. Now the newest generation is digital. Microprocessors manage traction, braking, and diagnostics in real time. A C-drive locomotives with inverter controls sense wheel slip and correct it within milliseconds. Computer screens have replaced many of the analog dials that once filled the cab, yet the essence of the job remains human. To read the landscape, to feel the weight, to anticipate what the system cannot. The human hand in automation. Automation has eased strain but never replaced judgment. Modern freight consists may run with distributed power units, additional locomotives placed mid-train or at the rear, controlled remotely by radio. They balance forces, reducing stress on couplers and rails. The computer coordinates throttle and brake across miles of equipment, but it still follows the engineer's command. In control rooms, analytics predict congestion and maintenance needs. Algorithms suggest timetables that save fuel. Yet when weather changes, when a sensor fails, when the unexpected happens, it is still a person who decides. That partnership between human intuition and technology is the modern art of railroading. Data offers clarity, experience gives wisdom. One refines the other, each completing what the other lacks. The economy of energy. With progress has come responsibility. the railroad remains one of the most energy-efficient means of transport ever devised. A modern freight train can move 1 ton of cargo nearly 500 miles on a single gallon of fuel, a statistic that has become a point of quiet pride across the industry. Electric lines go further, using regenerative systems that return power to the grid whenever trains break on descent. Even diesel-electric locomotives now employ regenerative braking, feeding captured energy into resistor grids or onboard storage systems to reduce wear and waste. Manufacturers are experimenting with battery electric switch engines, hydrogen fuel cell locomotives, and biodiesel blends that lower carbon output without sacrificing reliability. None of these technologies exist in isolation. They are stepping stones, small improvements joined like rails in sequence. Each one edges the railroad closer to sustainability, a form of progress measured not in speed but in endurance. Changing tools, enduring work. Inside the cab, the difference between past and present feels subtle. The levers are lighter, the displays brighter, but the sensations, the vibration through the seat, the faint sway of motion are timeless. The engineer still listens for the same clues: the tone of traction motors, the whisper of brakes releasing, the texture of rail underfoot. Technology assists, but the instinct to listen and feel cannot be coded. Every new system ultimately serves the same ancient goal: to keep mass and motion in harmony. Dispatchers, too, have entered the digital age. Screens now overlay weather radar and train telemetry. Software suggests meets and priorities, yet the calm voices on the radio sound no different than they did 50 years ago. Even as data flows faster than ever, the human rhythm endures: pause, confirm, proceed. In maintenance yards, welders use laser alignment tools instead of plumb lines, and geometry cars use satellites to measure rail curvature. Still, the spark of thermite welding glows the same orange as it did in the 1930s. Progress replaces tools, not purpose. Imprint and memory. Every generation leaves its mark on the rails. The early builders carved paths through wilderness. Their bridges and tunnels still stand, foundations for modern traffic. The steam era left water towers and roundhouses, some preserved, others quietly reclaimed by grass. Diesel brought its own architecture, fueling pads in section pits, and the rhythmic beat that defined an industrial century. Now digital signals and fibre optic cables trace the same rights of way, invisible yet vital. Each layer builds upon the last, never erasing what came before. Across the system, relics of every period coexist. A century-old stone culvert may carry trains powered by algorithms and satellite signals. In that coexistence lies the railroad's continuity, a living archive of invention. Steel remembers the hands that forged it, even as those hands change with time. Reflection. Technology has changed how people touch the rails, but not why. The heart of railroading has always been balance between power and restraint, progress and respect, precision and patience. Every new generation of machines gives the same old gift: more distance for less effort, but the discipline behind it remains human. To guide that much weight safely through the world requires humility before physics and faith in craftsmanship. At night, when a modern freight hums past, its lights reflected in the polished steel, the sound is smoother than it once was. No steam, no sparks, only the quiet roar of air and traction. Yet within that sound is the echo of every era. The breath of boilers, the whir of turbines, the pulse of diesel pistons. It is a lineage of motion, a record written in decibels and time. The railroad's future will bring quieter engines, cleaner power, and networks intelligent enough to learn from themselves. But behind every line of code, every transmission tower, every rail joint glowing under the sun, there will still be someone listening, someone deciding, someone caring, enough to keep the rhythm right. And as long as that rhythm continues, the rails will carry not only the weight of freight and passengers, but the weight of history itself, generation by generation, link by link, across the unbroken distance of the changing era. Stillness between journeys. Night settles over the yard like a deep exhale. Engines that roared all day now idle softly, their exhaust curling into the cool air. One by one their lights click off until only the faint glow of safety lamps remains, small halos in the mist. The rails themselves hold a residual warmth, gathered from the friction of 1,000 wheels. As the air cools, that warmth escapes in tiny sighs of steam. The sound is barely audible, yet somehow it feels alive, as if the steel were dreaming. In the distance, a switch engine drifts through the darkness, its headlight cutting a white tunnel across the yard. A single horn note echoes off the warehouses and fades. Then the quiet returns, punctuated only by the metallic ticking of cooling metal and the soft murmur of wind through the signal masts. It is a soundscape of patience, the railroad at rest but never truly asleep. The night shift moves deliberately. A few workers in reflective vests walk along the tracks, checking couplers and air hoses before morning's departures. Their footsteps clink softly on ballast. A wrench turns somewhere, the ring of steel on steel. Coffee steams on a bench beside a tool cart. Even at midnight, the smell of creosote and oil lingers as familiar as the scent of rain. This is the other side of motion, the pause that keeps everything in balance. For every hour of travel, there are hours of care, inspections, repairs, refueling, reflection. The system rests, but the people within it remain in quiet orbit around the work, tending it like a living thing. Their tasks rarely make headlines. They don't seek applause. Yet without them, morning would never arrive on schedule. Across the yard, a signal lamp changes from green to red, its last act of the day, marking the close of traffic. Somewhere a dispatcher logs the final clearance, signing off with a note that the line is clear. Screens dim. Radios fall silent except for the faint hiss of static. The pulse of the network slows. Its data streams and circuits settling into calm. For a few brief hours, the railroad breathes in peace. Beyond the yard, the main line stretches into the night. The twin rails glint faintly under starlight, converging towards the horizon. A thin fog gathers in the low ground, catching the glow of the nearest crossing signal. There is a timelessness to it, a sense that these lines have always been here, even when the land was empty of engines. The same steel that carried the day's freight now lies still, waiting to carry tomorrow's. Even at rest, the rails hum faintly. Press your ear to them and you might feel a vibration too deep to hear, the memory of motion still resonating within the metal. Physicists could explain it as residual heat expanding through the crystalline lattice of steel. Railroaders know it as something simpler, the line remembering where it's been. Beyond the yard, the main line stretches into the night. The twin rails glint faintly under starlight, converging towards the horizon. A thin fog gathers in the low ground, catching the glow of the nearest crossing signal. There is a timelessness to it, a sense that these lines have always been here, even when the land was empty of engines. The same steel that carried the day's freight now lies still, waiting to carry tomorrow's. Even at rest, the rails hum faintly. Press your ear to them and you might feel a vibration too deep to hear, the memory of motion still resonating within the metal. Physicists could explain it as residual heat expanding through the crystalline lattice of steel. Railroaders know it as something simpler, the line remembering where it's been. In that quiet, the work of thousands comes together. The welders and carmen who shaped the trains, the dispatchers who cleared the routes, the engineers who guided the loads, all of their labour now rests in stillness. Each has added a small piece of trust to the system, a promise that tomorrow it will start again. If you stand long enough in the silence, you can almost hear the rhythm beneath the calm, a hidden heartbeat of readiness, steady and sure. Dawn will come, as it always does. When the first light touches the eastern horizon, the rails will catch it before anything else. The cold steel will shine pale gold for a moment, then blush to copper as the sun climbs higher. Engines will stir, air compressors will begin their steady breathing, signals will blink awake in their red and green language of permission. A new shift will arrive, fresh hands, fresh eyes, and the long, slow current of motion will resume. The beauty of the railroad is not just in its power or its machinery, but in its constancy. It does not hurry and it does not rest forever. It moves, pauses and moves again, like the heartbeat of the land itself. Every person who works the line becomes part of that pulse, part of a story measured not in years but in journeys. They pass on their craft the way others pass on songs, by repetition, by memory, by care. When night returns, this same scene will unfold again. Lights dimming, engines cooling, the air filled with the faint perfume of iron and time. The rhythm will hold, and the rails will hum their quiet tune into the darkness. It is the sound of effort turned into peace, of motion finding its rest. And though the trains sleep, the line itself never truly stops listening. The railroad endures because people do, because each generation steps forward to continue what the last began. From fire to fuel to electricity to data, the tools have changed, but the promise remains. To move with purpose, to build with precision, to carry the weight of the world carefully across its own reflection. As the night deepens, the final yard light flickers and goes out. Somewhere far down the main line a single tone echoes, soft, distant and certain. It's not a warning this time, nor a signal of arrival. It's a lullaby sung in steel, a reminder that rest is part of the rhythm. And so the railroad sleeps for now, its rails cooling, its engines breathing low, its people walking home beneath the same stars that watched the first trains long ago. In that stillness between journeys, the world feels held together by quiet intention. Tomorrow will come, and with it motion. But tonight belongs to peace, and to the faint hum of the rails, waiting for dawn. Thank you for coming along on this journey. If you enjoyed tonight's story, the rhythm of steel, the quiet craft, the people who keep the rails alive, I'd love for you to stay with us. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you'll know when the next journey begins. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, have you ever taken a train ride that stayed with you or known someone who worked the rails? Your stories add warmth to this little community we're building together. For now, rest easy. Let the sound of the rails fade into quiet and carry their steady peace with you into sleep. Good night, and until next time, may your own road stay smooth and true,